Well, good morning. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. We're also on 102.3 FM, and you can find us in several places on social media. So, if you missed the show on Saturday, you can pick it up on Truth Social, Rumble, YouTube, and Twitter. Interesting day today. There's so much negative news. Looks like the face diapers are coming back to California. They're already in hospitals. They're already in multiple colleges. California's put out what they call the SMART plan. The first two legs of the plan is first, of course, everybody needs to jab up. But we're on booster 6. Let's see. If it's a vaccine, you need 6? No, it's like a flu shot with side effects. Huh. I don't think I'm taking it. Hope you're not taking it. The next thing on the list is the face diapers. They don't work. It's a lie. It's about controlling us so that they can do whatever they want. And the California legislature, along with evil, lying Gavin Newsom, never forget, the man is a snake. He's fairly smooth talking, but he's a snake. They're constantly trying to take away your rights. He saw COVID, and he said so, that it was an opportunity for a more progressive type of capitalism. Why would the government be making choices about the type of capitalism we have? Unless he's a secret commie. Or maybe he's just a socialist. Or maybe he just believes in his own power and he would like it to be King Gavin. I don't know. So, face diapers, Bidenomics, and I do believe that there is some hope. But you're going to have to make it through a little while before we get there. Like I said, I think masks are about fear and control. Once they have that fear and control, they get everybody. And in California, this matters less because we have a certified cheating system. I mean, extremely vulnerable voting system. I suppose it's not actually technically called a cheating system, but if you got 30 days to vote, 30 days to count the vote, everybody's a mail-in ballot. Ballots are not unique to each individual. There's not like a serial number. If you're in certain categories, you can print off your own ballot off your own computer paper. Many of the counties are voter choice counties, so that means that you can vote anywhere within your county. So the election officials wouldn't recognize you. We absolutely have a mess here in California. They've set up a system that is truly vulnerable. And let's see, forget about my words. Let's see, the New York Times did an article about how before they used it to help themselves during COVID, that mail-in ballots were truly vulnerable. They have higher rejection rates. They almost invite opportunities for fraud. And in most states, ballot harvesting of those mail-in ballots is illegal. Now, California, they've decided that that's a good idea. So they think that the most important thing is that as many votes as they can get go in. Doesn't matter whether they're legal votes. That seems to be the position of the Democratic Party here in California. It's rather sad. They need to go. Not just that, though. Jimmy Carter, an icon of the left, a former president, a beloved member of the left. He did a commission. He led a commission, and that commission concluded that one of the biggest vulnerabilities in voting was mail-in ballots. We needed voter ID. Those were kind of the two main things that came from that report. And now the left, when they realized that, those things are racist. Oh, wait, no, I think it's actually racist that you would say because of the color of somebody's skin, they could not get an ID. And I'm pretty sure Biden's talked about that. Wouldn't that make Biden a racist? It's interesting to me that the left is all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then they picked the most milquetoast, lying, dishonest white man they could to be their president. Interesting. Mister, if you ain't black, you ain't voting for Joe Biden, you ain't black. In other words, he saw the color of your skin and knew what was in your head. That's racist and insulting. I wouldn't presume that because of the color of somebody's skin, I would know what their politics were, what their religion was. But Lion Joe, Trader Joe, seems to know. And he was on a show that seemed to not have a problem with that. Yet the guy, and I hate to even name him, the show that it was on, he takes the name of God in vain. You can probably figure out who it is. African American gentleman. But he wasn't even offended by that comment. Yet he professes this woke left ideology constantly. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe it's not really about skin color for them. It's about politics and control. So I just kind of wanted to get into some of the details of the mask study. So CDC first claimed masks weren't working. This is right early COVID. They don't work. April 2020, they changed course and went so far as to say you should mask 2-year-olds. Doesn't make a lot of sense. September 2020, CDC Director Robert Redfield said masks are the most important tool against COVID, even suggesting they might be more effective than the vaccines. So the head of the CDC said masks were more effective than a potential shot. This kind of then resulted in 39 states going, oh, well, we need to sheep up. 39 states had mask mandates. Now, some of them got rid of them sooner than others. Here in California, where we were supposed to say Sig Heil to Gavin Newsom and acknowledge his greatness, even though he doesn't follow his own rules. He goes to dinner parties, at the French Laundry, where he didn't have to mask up, where when the Super Bowl was happening, and Magic Johnson happened to be there also, Gavin Newsom decided he needed a picture, but he had the nerve to tell us he held his breath while they took their pictures together without masks on. This is the same man that said you can't sing in church, you can't go to church, but no problem going to a strip club. Gavin Newsom is an evil man. He's probably running for president. Everybody in California needs to let people know. Gavin Newsom would be a more effective Joe Biden, meaning words don't mean anything. He's without morals. He's amoral. He's just more effective at lying. So he'd do a better job than Joe, because you can never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to F things up. That is a direct quote from the president at the time, Barack Obama, about his vice president, now our current president, Trader Joe. So getting back to this study, and you can find information about this study. It was published by the Cochrane Library. It's a mask study, but you can find a simpler version through the Washington Post, kind of a summary of it. There were 78 different randomized studies. They were across all income groups, ethnicities, and from around the world. So they took the results from these 78 trials. And there was a total of 276,000, almost 277,000 people that participated in this mask study. It looked at what happened with surgical masks, which most people that are walking around were working or wearing a surgical mask or less, or just a cloth mask. Very few people had the higher quality N95s. It also, though, included in part of the study 8,000 of the people that were involved in the study specifically used N95s, or the European equivalent. I can't remember the name for that one. Essentially, they call the N95 something different in Europe. In both cases, the study determined that little to no effect was had on the transmission or whether you got COVID or not. when you wore the mask. In other words, it didn't matter whether you chose to be a sheep or you chose to be a lion. Oh, it mattered in another sense, but it didn't matter as to whether or not you got COVID. Now, it matters in the sense that Americans have a long-standing tradition of standing up for their rights. I'm going to say that again. Americans have a long-standing tradition of standing up for their rights. And a whole lot of sheep complied. If you've ever wondered, say you read about what happened in Nazi Germany. Have you ever wondered, would you be Schindler? Or would you be one of the people that tortured Schindler? Would you be one of the people that defied the Nazi government? Or would you be one of the people that just fell in line, largely because of fear? And I would contend that they used the masks to create an atmosphere of fear so that you couldn't see each other's faces, that you couldn't go to a bar, which is a place where, frankly, I don't drink, but a lot of people go and hang out with their friends and they get recharged. You couldn't go to a baseball game and get recharged. You couldn't go to church and get recharged, particularly here in Commie, California. So if you couldn't do those things, you were kind of hooked into the fear. But now you know, were you the one that complied? Or were you like Bonhoeffer? Again, if you've read about Germany, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, very famous Christian pastor that stood against Nazi Germany and ultimately ended up paying the price for his choices. Well, to not act is to act. To not speak is to speak. So if you stood silent while your civil liberties were being stomped on, and I'm talking about after the 2 weeks to slow the spread, when all of a sudden, in all these liberal states, not only did new information come out, but they realized they had you where they wanted you. They could now do whatever they wanted. Dance, my monkey, dance. From my perspective, I'd say do not comply with these two new potential coming mask mandates. Again, both California has put out its own plan called the SMART Plan, and the Biden administration has put out a plan. And the first two elements in both those plans are you need to get vaccine number 6. Yes, I'm not even making this up. Vaccine number 6. And you need to wear a mask. Now, they haven't implemented these yet, but it's coming. And if you comply, I think we might be over. There might be still some elements of red-blooded Americans that will stand against this and there will be a civil war. But by and large, if you don't show courage, if you don't stand, we're done. Now, the good thing is courage is contagious. So if you were one of those that stood, one of you that showed an example. I'm not talking about the guy that's sitting in his car by himself, cowering with a mask on. Or maybe he's just a criminal and he doesn't want people to see his face. You got to give him full credit. It might not be that they're a coward. It might be that they're a criminal. That's also a possibility. What about the people that are just uninformed and they're running around to this day? I go to the Bay Area and the percentage of masks go way up from when I'm sitting here in Fresno. It's a little better in Clovis than Fresno because I think that we have a different type of population in Clovis. We have something closer to traditional Americans and we have something a little closer to socialist in the city of Fresno. Now, I am glad to say there are absolutely exceptions to that, and I hope that Fresno finds its strength. But they're led by a mayor who's, I don't know, he's kind of for sale. He'll do whatever's needed to get money. And a city council that, aside from Gary Bredefeld, and once in a while, Carbassi will actually do the right thing, but mostly he's just weak. It's pretty sad. Clovis is a little better, though we have our own problems. I might get into that later, depending on how the show goes. Well, so I mentioned it was a New York Post article you can find that was published February 14th, 2023 about these masks. And remember, masks make little to no difference as to whether you can spread COVID, whether you can get COVID. If you're wearing the mask, you're just as likely to get COVID. You're just as likely to spread COVID. And it doesn't seem to matter whether it was a surgical mask, an N95, or frankly, some of the cloth masks are even more porous than the surgical masks. So a lot of those custom masks that you got to wear, they were even more worthless. Though they were probably more stylish, I would at least hope. So, do not comply. I'm going to switch topics because, I had three things going on. Now, Bidenomics and inflation, I think they're almost synonymous terms. Joe Biden can claim a whole lot of things. Well, yes, GDP went up, but if wages, while they're growing, are growing much slower than the rate of inflation, each month you're getting a tax cut. Excuse me, I completely said that wrong. Each month you're getting an income cut, not a tax cut, an income cut. So you have less money available because it costs you more for everything. Have you seen the price of groceries? What about energy? Here in California, we're paying, if you get darn lucky, you're paying just under $5 a gallon for gas, for the cheap gas, not the expensive gas. Well, in other states, it's up somewhere, I think it's 34% nationwide. Well, that's largely because he chose to shut down the Keystone Pipeline and did everything he could to suppress domestic oil production. Energy costs are up by 28%, almost 29% nationwide. So what would be the consequences of gas and energy being more? Well, every product you go buy at the store had to get there. It took gas or it took energy to make that product. Now all of a sudden it costs more. Let's say roughly a third more. It costs more to transport it. And so now you've got all those built-in costs. So all the products are going up. And Joe can crow about Bidenomics, but why is debt, and I'm talking household debt, largely credit card debt, why is it at record highs? Because Bidenomics is working? That didn't pass the smell test. It's because Gibberin Joe just needs to go. Because he'll tell you anything. Tell you anything. Look, Trump often exaggerates, but Joe outright goes out of his way to tell stories that have no basis in reality whatsoever. And he's not sharp anymore. Age isn't as much of an issue as could he pass a cognitive test? I doubt it. Most kindergartners I know are able, when there's a red carpet, they're able to follow it. I've watched Joe in several videos now where he wasn't able to follow the red carpet. He just kind of started wandering off in some direction. I remember watching another video where Joe's superhero, the Easter Bunny, had to save him. So, is that a picture of strength when the Easter Bunny has to direct you as to which way to go? I don't think so. Yet, the Democratic Party said, we want diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then they picked the most milquetoast, white, racist president they could get, which tells me they're not actually about those things. They're about the acquisition of power. So they don't actually care about those things. And then nobody really wants Kamala. There was one of their few tokens to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But she's less liked than Joe. Now, it's impressive that Joe was able to find somebody that is less liked and less competent. Truly impressive. He's got a press secretary, KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, who specializes in lying, but she's bad at it. It doesn't pass the smell test. It's not believable. We're going to go ahead and take a break. I'll come back to Bidenomics. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Also on 102.3 FM. To my social media folks, I've been really thrilled that lately numbers are up. So I appreciate if you comment. I truly appreciate it. If maybe you don't agree with what I'm saying and you set me right. It is possible that I'm wrong. Now, my ego doesn't allow me to believe it happens very often, but it is possible. So please like, please subscribe, please share. It is great that numbers are up. And I want to thank everybody for that, even if you don't like me. Thank you for listening. Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town, also on 102.3 FM, and you can find us in various places on social media. Getting back to Bidenomics, it didn't just happen with the suppression of energy production. It also happened when Biden passed the Build Back Better, Bilk the American People plan that gave a whole bunch of money to green energy, gave a whole bunch of money to special interest, spent billions of dollars that we really didn't have, spent billions. Oh, wait, no, I'm way off, haven't I? It spent trillions, a couple $1 trillion. So our debt, and that was the government estimate, but it's already been revised and it's going to be higher. So in theory, he spent about $2 trillion, but it's looking like it's going to be closer to 4, taking our total debt to about $37 trillion. Now, I don't know what that means for every household in the United States, but I'm betting that it is more than the value of most homes. And yet, we continue to keep doing the same thing. Definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing over and over again that isn't working. Yet Biden will absolutely. Remember when he gave the speech about the greatness of Bidenomics, and then he did the creepy whisper voice, like we're supposed to listen to it. It's just when he says, and I'm not lying, or that's the truth. What that means is he's about to tell you a lie. And he does it without flinching, without changing his body language. It is scary. It is actually sad to me that somehow we had a president that, well, he's scum. I can't be nicer than that. And I wish I had more respect for the office of the presidency. But when you're for sale, when you take zero responsibility for your action, that's kind of who you are. We're going to go ahead and play a video called Your America by Tom McDonald and Adam Calhoun. We're going to play just how long? Minute 55, almost 2 minutes of it. When you're ready. The reason this is important, both of these guys. Now, they're not necessarily Republicans. If you listen to the first part of that song, they're not Republicans. But they believe in American freedom, which I think is incredibly important. Trump isn't a conservative. He's an America First guy. There's a difference. I'm more of a conservative, meaning I have some criticisms of Trump. He didn't save enough money. He didn't cut government enough. But he did a lot of things and he has my support. Because they believe that he is the only one equipped. Now, Vivek, largely, but I don't think Vivek's going to happen. Or Vivek. That is talking about truly cutting back government. And I want those to happen. And I don't know that he's necessarily talking about truly cutting them back and having a smaller government. He's talking about the deep state needs to be not just defanged, but they need to be neutered. We don't have a fourth branch of government, yet they act like it. The FBI has decided that at least a portion of them have decided that they're above the law and that they can take out anybody they want and they can apply laws that maybe were never applied suddenly. That same exact thing. Applying laws that they ignored are suddenly being used against Trump. Now, if we were to be fair, and we jailed Trump and Hillary and Joe Biden and Obama, maybe I would not have as much of a problem with it. But because it's selective, it's not okay. So getting back to inflation a little bit more. Remember, energy's up roughly a third. Gas is up roughly a third. The average American is paying about $10,000 more than they were just to live life at the exact same level they did pre-Biden. Think about that. $10,000 more to do the same things because of inflation. Yet Bidenomics is working. Don't believe your lying eyes, folks. Don't believe your lying eyes. And that's exactly what Joe Biden's asking you to do. Remember, inflation is growing at a rate that is faster than your pay hike. Remember, record household debt, levels we've never seen before. So, just remember all that. Remember that Biden also, he's probably going down, though it's likely that he's the candidate. We'll see. It still looks like they could try to insert somebody like Big Mike, Michelle Obama, or they could insert somebody like the evil, lying, slick-haired, dishonest Gavin Newsom, greasy Gavin. I don't know who else they would bring up because Pete Buttigieg just thinks roads are racist, and I'm sorry that I even have to say ridiculous things like that. So I do believe that the House will eventually get to the 218 votes they need to begin impeachment proceedings. Biden has 16 LLCs along with his family, but most of them don't make any sense as to what product does that LLC provide. No sense whatsoever. We've got the email of Hunter to his sister. Might have been a text to his sister, where he complains that he has to give 50% of his income to his dad. Huh? Why would that be? While he was working for Burisma in Ukraine, where he had zero experience about energy, but he worked for an energy company for very real money. We've got new 5,000 plus new emails under various different emails, all from Joe Biden to his son. Now, the Gmail ones, I believe, will absolutely come to light because all the Congress has to do is go to Google and request those, and might have to get a court order, but just request those, as opposed to FBI will drag their feet because I think that, sadly, their leadership isn't about doing the right thing. That doesn't mean that every FBI official is not doing the right thing. I believe their leadership has decided it's in their best interest that Joe Biden remain in power, because if somebody else is there, maybe somebody honest, maybe they'd be called to task on a few things. Now, I thought that getting back to that song, I thought it was really important that the culture is shifting. If songs like that, and that both of those guys are independent artists, they are not with a record label. If that can get 10 million views, actually, I think that one's at 5. They've got another one that they put out like the week before that's at 10 million. People are beginning to listen. People are beginning to wake up. Another example of that, and the reason I did not play the Oliver Anthony Richmond North of Richmond video and song, is because he uses some inappropriate for radio words. But it's a powerful song. I looked at that this morning. It's at 59 million views, and the guy was nobody a month ago. Hardly anybody knew who he was. Nobody heard his music. Nobody knew his name. 59 million views. He has very populist, nationalist themes. I'm not saying he's a Republican. I'm saying he has populist, nationalist, Christian themes. And it's resonating with people. Now, that's a huge deal. Something else that would be kind of a huge deal. Again, you got to change culture first. We got to change ourselves. We begin to change culture because we affect those around us by leading by example, by talking to people, by getting out there and spreading a message of freedom, conservatism, traditional values. Well, there's a movie called Sound of Freedom. It hit big. It hit really big for a largely independent film. It was a big deal. It beat out Indiana Jones first week. I don't know where it ultimately ended up, but it awakened a bunch of people to a legitimate problem. For years now, we've been getting the runaround from the government about the Epstein Island. And I think the reason for that is because people like Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, not Obama, surprisingly, though he's involved in Pizzagate. Um, they've been going to this island. And by the way, Melinda Gates, Bill Gates' former wife, said one of the reasons she's divorcing him is because he was going to that island where minors and sexual acts were involved. But we can't get the client list from the government. It should be published. Every one of those people that went there needs to suffer consequences. If you're having sex with kids, that would mean you're not minor attracted. That would mean you were a pedophile. That would mean that you should go to jail. And I think that, then you would let the rest of the prison population know that you're a pedophile. And hey, if something happened, I wouldn't actually feel bad. Wouldn't feel bad at all. So it didn't bring light to necessarily this island issue, but Sound of Freedom brought light to this larger issue of kids are being trafficked. Now, there are some things that are highly suspicious when it comes to Pizzagate. Barack Obama ordered huge amounts of pizza and huge, like crazy, like $70,000 worth of pizza or $30,000 worth of hot dogs. Hot dogs aren't expensive. You could feed thousands upon thousands of people for that. And did you know that those two words, they're code for young boys and young girls? Now, am I 100% sure that all of the strings are tied together and that Obama is a pedophile? Not 100% sure, but it sure doesn't look good. And we shouldn't be hiding those records. If he did it and that's who he is, he needs to not just be dragged through the mud, but he needs to be tarred and feathered, convicted, and thrown in jail. Now, again, he gets his day in court. I hope that whatever the evidence is the truth. If he's innocent, then okay. But if he's guilty, he needs to see real punishment. So this hero of the left, potentially, there's a lot of iffy things going on. We still don't know what happened with Obama's personal chef. All I can tell you is it doesn't make sense that a man who can swim pretty well was in his prime, in his 40s, drowning in an 8-foot lake with no wind, still waters. Doesn't quite make sense. I don't know. We'll see. Well, I don't want to jump to a conclusion on that one, but something looks fishy. That's all I'm willing to say on that one. So it's also interesting that the left lined up and said, oh no, Sound of Freedom, this is all fake. This is fake news. This isn't actually happening. Yet Tim Ballard, the guy that actually the movie is based on, his life and what he's done, he's been talking for years about this problem. And now that we've opened up the border, wouldn't it make the problem worse? The Biden administration claims that the border is closed, but they admit that there are maybe 2 million gotaways, meaning people that were never interviewed, nothing ever happened. They just found a way to get into the country without being seen. During the Biden administration, that's kind of a big deal. Also, the Biden administration got rid of the Trump administration rule that said if you come in with kids, you very much need to prove that that's your kid. Well, if you're not proving that it's your kid, what's then happening? If you're bringing in somebody else's kid, what's happening to that kid? Might I venture to say that fentanyl makes money, but once the drug is gone, it's gone. Kids, unfortunately, saddens me to say this, but you could sell them multiple times a day for years. So there's a lot of money in trafficking, and it's horrible. It's a stain upon the greatness of this nation. And the fact that one party saying, oh, it's not really happening. No, we need to change to minor attracted people rather than pedophiles. And it all seems to always be the same party. Yet, I have friends, good people, old school Democrats. They're still voting Democrat because they believe that that party that they used to vote for, that cared about the working man, that cared about freedom of speech, they believe it still exists. I don't believe it still exists. That doesn't mean I don't have problems with the Republican Party, but it's a pretty clear division. And until there's a third party of some strength, those are your choices. So I know which way I'm voting. We're going to go ahead and take our last break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. So when we come back, I'm going to set up the next video talking about the rise of Christian nationalism. Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. We're also on 102.3 FM, and you can find us in various places on social media. So we're a growing station. I found this video very interesting. It's from Dr. Steve Turley. He puts on Turley Talks, so it's a podcast. And it's talking about the rise of Christian nationalism. Now, why would that matter? Now, from the Biden administration's perspective, that means it's the rise of the terrorists. And I see it as the rise of the people that actually believe in something, that respect traditional American values, that they realize why and how this country was founded and how it's uniquely special. It was founded on ideals and mixed with Christian principles. Did we always live up to those ideals? Nope, we did not. But that's okay, because every nation's flawed. You never hear, and I'm kind of stealing this from Vivek Ramaswamy, you never hear about China not living up to its ideals. Because in China, you simply do what the Communist Party tells you, or you suffer consequences. If you do something they really don't like, you disappear. We going to be able to play that, Jeremy?
Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, and you know, it's actually gotten rather hard to read America's pollsters and pundits without coming across rather panicked articles over the rise of Christian nationalism in America. The alarm bells really seem to be set off by a recent study from the Public Religion Research Institute that asked 5,000 respondents representing all 50 states if they agreed or disagreed with a series of statements, such as the U.S. government should declare America a Christian nation. U.S. law should be based on Christian values. If the U.S. moves away from our Christian foundations, we will not have a country anymore. Being Christian is an important part of being truly American. And finally, God has called Christians to exercise dominion over all areas of American society. Now, the results from that study terrified liberals. According to the study, 30% of the American public as a whole either agreed or strongly agreed with every single one of those statements. 30%. It's an astonishing number, especially for those of you who know about tipping point theory. If you don't know about tipping point theory, then you haven't been a regular to this channel.
Let's go ahead and cut it.
Smack that bell and subscribe button.
So think about that. If 30% are strongly agreeing that this is a Christian nation, that our government should be declared a Christian nation, that we should base how we govern on Christian principles. Doesn't mean that you couldn't be something else, but I believe that modern Christianity, it's a religion of tolerance. Otherwise, we wouldn't have so many flavors of Christianity. Well, so it's tolerance. And I believe that our strength isn't in our diversity, it's in our tolerance of various viewpoints. That we can still get along in the face of all of these different perspectives. I think that's really one of the strengths of this country. Some other cultural things that have to do with freedom. You know, Disney's stock is at a record low. They keep just, it's like they found a wall and they went, I think I can take this wall down as long as I keep beating my head against it. And it doesn't seem to be working very well for them. Maybe if I kick the wall, but I'm barefoot and I just keep kicking, maybe the wall will fall down. Doesn't seem to be happening. They keep giving us woke products like the Emotions movie, like Indiana Jones, the last one, which was not very much of a success, like several of the superhero movies that are not a success, where they went and had Bud Light, Bud, not Bud. I'm stumbling today, folks. I am sorry. Buzz, not Bud. Buzz Lightyear. That Buzz Lightyear movie where they made it all about transgender, that they had to have a gay character. Well, it used to be that Disney was the place where you could drop your kid off and not have to worry. You didn't need to view what it was beforehand. And then there was nothing to worry about. It was just simple, basic American values and family fun, and nothing risque, nothing R-rated, nothing to worry about. Well, that ship sailed. Maybe old Disney's one thing, but modern Disney, for instance, they have a show called The Proud Family. It's all featuring African Americans. It is a cartoon, but it talks about how they're owed reparations for slavery. Basically talks about how they're victims. How dare you refer to African Americans as victims? And talks about critical race theory. That's part of why I'm positive that it talks about them as victims, because critical race theory looks at your color first. It puts you in your tribe. And then once it knows your tribe, it knows whether you're the oppressed or the oppressor. Now, if you're really lucky and you're in multiple groups that are oppressed, boy, nobody ever gets to question anything you say. You get to call them names, like racist, sexist, transphobe, homophobe, if you were in enough oppressed categories. And the most oppressed people should have the most power, according to critical race theory. And everybody else should just shut up and get in line. Well, that's not American. That's just some little totalitarian woke game they're playing to try to control you. That's not okay. So Disney stocks at record low. On Disney Plus, they've had to cut shows. They're just bleeding money. It looks like they might fire their CEO, Bob Iger. Kind of hope so. Kind of hope the board goes too, because they keep making decisions that are not in the best interest of the people that are invested in that stock. In theory, Disney's a money-making business, not a political wing of the Democratic Party. Hope they figure that out, because it was once, at one time, a great organization. And I imagine that Walt Disney, the founder, would be rolling in his grave if he realized what woke anti-American leftists they were. Some other points of light. Boycotts have largely only worked for the left up till recently. And that shifted with Bud Light when they decided that the average Bud Light drinker, who, to quote the person who made this commercial, were fratty and out of touch should embrace the trans movement. And then they put somebody, I don't know, Dylan something, up in woman face, meaning, just like if I was to pretend I was African American, paint my face in a particular way, well, this is a guy pretending to be a woman, not trying to be funny, that plays the part of a little girl. Well, the American people went, oh no, we've had enough of this nonsense. And they began to boycott the product. Well, Bud Light used to be number one in the nation. It's no longer number one. They've lost somewhere around 25 billion in market share. It's a little bit of an old number, so it's probably a little more than that now. What about Target? Target, who decided to target your kids, who decided that you needed LGBTQ kid stuff, and then made tuck-friendly bathing suits. Instead of letting kids just be innocent, Target decided they needed to wade into the culture war, and they're paying the price. Last I heard, something like 19 billion in loss in market value. Best Buy, because of the new media, got caught. They had a training program for people moving into management, but they absolutely excluded people that are white. Well, that's flat out racist. Best Buy is a racist organization. They should pay the consequences. Don't go to Best Buy. Liberty Safe, again, because of media, they just got caught. They got caught giving the access code to your gun safe because there was a warrant, but it wasn't a warrant specifically for that safe. They just folded over immediately. Now, Apple didn't do that when the FBI wanted to look into people's iPhones. They said, absolutely not. Apple, a woke leftist company, stood for more freedom than Liberty Safe. Liberty Safe, you need to never buy one again, and you have to realize if you own a Liberty Safe, you're not safe. They have an access code. I don't even know why they have one. Anyway, I want to point out that blacks and Hispanics are shifting to the right. We have this mugshot of the former president, Donald Trump, that has energized that community. There is hope, folks. Go out and make a difference. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Do not comply. Don't put up with their nonsense. Find your voice. Make a difference.